Sonoro Gold ist ein angehender Goldproduzent mit einem Projekt in Mexiko, das Cerro Caliche Projekt. Das Team arbeitet derzeit mit Hochdruck daran, das Projekt noch innerhalb von 2023 in Produktion zu bringen. Und der Chairman John Darch, der wird bald in Deutschland sein, nämlich auf der Edelmetallmesse in München am 4. und 5. November. Also schon sehr bald wird er am Stand von axinocapital sein und dort für eure Fragen und eure Gespräche offen sein. Erst vor wenigen Tagen hatten wir ein Webinar mit Sonoro Gold, wo die Firma vom CEO Kenneth MacLeod noch einmal vorgestellt wurde und schon viele Fragen beantwortet wurden. Falls ihr nicht nach München kommen könnt, solltet ihr euch dies unbedingt anschauen. Ansonsten wird sich John Darch in dem Video aber hier einmal vorstellen, damit ihr all eure Fragen für die Edelmetallmesse in München vorbereiten könnt. John, it's very good to have you. We just had our webinar with Ken and you. Thank you very much for a great webinar. I think we've had a lot of good questions. We don't just have the webinar, you're also going to join us on the Edelmetallmesse in a couple of weeks. You're going to be in Germany. And I think it's a good situation to talk about why gold, why Sonoro, why come up to the booth and talk to you. And before we dive deeper in, we should start with who are you and what's your track record? Maybe you can tell us a bit about you, how you met Wolfgang and what brings you into the gold market.
As to myself, I'm a commercial banker by background in the UK and then in Canada. And then between the years of 83 to 2006, I co-founded 5 companies in the natural resources plus a geothermal project. Now, of the 5 companies, this will be where I met Wolfgang while he was still in the bank. And the most notable would have been Asia Pacific Resources, which we, former business partner, established and identified approximately 2 billion tons of very high-grade potash in Thailand. That was well received by the market. The shares responded well to a high of $11. And eventually the company was taken over by Italia Thai, which is a conglomerate in Thailand.
John Darch's Background begann als Banker zunächst in England und später dann in Kanada. Der nächste Karrieresprung, der bestand dann daraus, dass John 5 Ressourcenfirmen innerhalb von wenigen Jahren gründete. Und das war auch der Zeitraum, in welchem er Wolfgang Seibold, unseren CEO von axinocapital.de, kennenlernte. 2016 hat er sich dann mit einem persönlichen Investment in der Höhe von $5 Millionen einer Kaffeeplantage gewidmet, welche er ebenfalls aufgebaut hat. Und dabei hat er nicht nur ein Kaffeebusiness aufgebaut, sondern auch die lokale Bevölkerung profitieren lassen. Die gesamte Story, die kann man im Internet nachlesen. Das habe ich euch einmal unter dem Video verlinkt.
And then, of course, it comes to 2018-19 when my dear friend Ken MacLeod invited me to join Sonoro. And at that time, I'd accomplished what I wanted to do with the coffee, and I was pleased to come back in again. So that was the beginning of the journey back into Sonoro. I was happy to come in as the chairman of the company, to work with Ken again. I'd known him for 40 years, and we'd had a lot of successes together. That's my background.
Excellent. And sounds like a really good track record. And from what I know, Wolfgang had his first 10-bagger with one of your companies, right?
That would have been with Asia Pacific. And if he'd been more patient, he'd have done much better. I think it comes down to a business philosophy. And the business philosophy is to try to develop something with a minimum shareholder dilution. And in the case of Sonoro, is to move to production, generate cash flow. That will enable us to develop the resource even more. And very much along the same pathway as Crew, which was successful for doing that.
Wolfgang Seibold hatte also seine erste Verzehnfachung einer Aktie mit John Darch. Und das ist bereits viele Jahre her. Aber das legt vermutlich auch den Grundstein für die Arbeit und die Begeisterung, die das Axino-Team gegenüber dem Investieren in Rohstoffunternehmen hat.
I was invited into Sonoro Gold, and I saw an opportunity there because of the people, the location of the projects, and what I would regard as the ease of operation, open pit. And it coincided with my belief that gold would be very much in favor with the public. Now, that was in 2019, and it's had a bit of a run. But now we're in a position where we're experiencing really quite massive volatility in the financial markets, where currency valuations, particularly US dollar, is moving to a 30-year high. And because it's a currency that is used to trade commodities. And because countries, when they borrow in US dollars, they have that dominance, which is having a very negative impact on the world in many respects, because all countries are compelled to buy US dollars to pay for commodities. If Europeans, for instance, they buy US gas, they have to pay in US dollars. And so all these factors mean that when you're looking at a project, you have to be in a location where energy prices are not particularly high, where labor is reasonably good, and it's a safe environment. Because at the end of the day, location and the cost of operations are critical in evaluating a project. So why gold stocks is because of where we are in the marketplace now. This what you call volatility. You have a situation where we have seen recently where the US, in an effort to try to reduce the cost of gas in the United States, went to Saudi Arabia, and they were rejected. Now, that to me is a very telling event, that Saudi Arabia would reject the US's request, and concurrently they are selling gas and oil to Saudi Arabia, to China, and accepting yuan as a currency. And so I think there's going to be a shift with other countries who are tired of relying totally on a US dollar as a commodity that dominates the world, maybe have an alternative currency. So these countries, they go to have an alternative currency which they unite with. And that would mean that it could be the beginning of the decline of the significance of the US dollar in the marketplace. And go back in time when sterling was the dominant currency. The exchange rate between sterling and the US dollar was about $4 to £1 sterling. And when it lost its dominance in terms of currency, and in terms of the reserve of the world, the value went down. So I could see a situation where we will find the high interest rates that we have now in the United States has a negative effect on the economy. That will cause repercussions. The issue that's going on in the Ukraine will have further issues. Relationships between Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, etc., that'll have other issues that will come through. And so all this volatility, in my mind, means that gold stocks and the price of gold are depressed at the moment. And that is because gold is priced in US dollar. Once the dominance of the US dollar diminishes, gold prices will naturally rise.
Zu der Frage, warum John Darch nach all diesen Jahren noch immer an Gold glaubt und wieder in den Sektor zurückgekommen ist, gibt er eine klare Antwort. Zum einen sind viele Länder die Vormachtstellung der USA und damit auch der Macht des Dollars satt. Jedes Ölgeschäft musste immer in US-Dollar abgewickelt werden. Und so war es auch mit anderen Dingen. Demnach gibt es natürlich eine stetige Nachfrage nach dem US-Dollar. Inzwischen haben sich aber Länder wie Russland und China davon losgesagt und wickeln Ölgeschäfte ohne den US-Dollar ab. Mehr zu diesem brisanten Thema erfahrt ihr in Wolfgang Seibolds Vortrag, welchen ich euch ebenfalls nochmal unter den Videos verlinkt habe. Und warum der Goldpreis und auch die Goldstocks aktuell unter Druck stehen, das begründet John Darch mit einem sehr starken US-Dollar, der aktuell vorherrscht und dadurch deswegen den Goldpreis drückt und somit natürlich auch die Aktien mit runterzieht.
And then if we have a situation where many people who are sitting on the sidelines have recognized that there's a potential of being a very difficult economic situation worldwide, I think gold's going to find its own. And so what is the best thing to do from an investor's point of view is to look for a company such as Sonoro, which has got the intent of moving to production. Not a company that will be for the next 5-10 years drilling, etc., but one that can actually have a plan to move forward. And why Sonoro is an ideal situation is because it ticks the boxes of everything that's necessary. It is in northern Mexico, a friendly state. We are surrounded by operating mines. The labor force is willing and capable. We have energy, and in this part of the world, There's the ability to have geothermal as a source, a clean energy source, so that all works as well. And the simplicity of the operation. So to move to why Sonoro, I think it's very important to understand that the company itself has the 5 essential components to be successful. It has a team of people. These are very complementary in their skills: geologist, engineer, financial, marketing. And importantly, they're very committed to the company. And this is demonstrated by the fact that they have about 24% of the company shares. And their average cost is probably around about 19 cents a share. So when you have a strong management team, people who have proven to be successful in their own lives and their past experiences, and are willing to invest heavily in the company, it's a very good sign that there's something good that's going on. And for instance, if we look at the last financings that we did, the insiders participate substantially in each one of those. So we have the people, we have the investment, we have the share structure, we have the property itself, which has the potential, we believe, of up to 2 million ounces. It's at a stage now where we are moving to go to production.
Zu der Frage, warum man in Sonoro Gold investieren soll, sagt John ganz klar, dass die Firma alle Voraussetzungen erfüllt. Es gibt eine sichere Lage in dem miningfreundlichen Mexiko. Es gibt produzierende Minen rund um Sonoro, die Arbeitskräfte und die Energie sind dort verfügbar und im Prinzip spricht alles dafür. Doch vor allem hebt John das Team hervor. Das hat nicht nur besonders viel Erfahrung und hat bereits große Erfolge hervorheben können, sondern steht auch hinter der Firma. Denn das Team von Sonoro hält derzeit knapp 24% der Aktien. Zudem spricht er noch an, dass das Team einen sehr guten Businessplan hat, den er euch jetzt einmal vorstellt.
We've had a clear business plan from the very beginning, and that business plan was to minimize shareholder dilution, move to production as soon as possible, have sufficient ounces to satisfy a project lender. Funding them will enable us to not only go to production, but with the proceeds to be able to expand the resource to extend the life of the mine. So that business plan is very, very important. And the fact that we as a company do not have to rely on being acquired by a major to be successful is also significant. We have the capability of doing it ourselves. We are at the moment in advanced conversations or discussions with project lender. We've dealt with them for over 2 years. They are going through their due diligence, and as you'd imagine from a lender's point of view, is a little bit more deeper than you'd have normally for a PEA. And they engaged an independent, internationally known consulting firm to review all aspects of Sonoro. And they're currently reviewing the resource and the mine plan. And we have nothing that would give us any cause of concern at this stage. It's a timing factor. I know everybody gets very unhappy about timing, but I would like to say that we're able to make a statement that for everything that we can control, operations, costs, timing, we do. There are issues that are beyond our control. The price of gold, market sentiment, and what comes out of the ground. Luckily enough, what comes out of the ground is looking good. And if the gold price over the next 6 months or year responds as many people in the market believe so, the potential profitability of this operation is quite significant.
Zusammengefasst lässt sich sagen, dass das Management-Team von Sonoro Gold eben sehr stark hinter ihrem Projekt steht und dies mit seiner Erfahrung und ausgesprochen erfolgreichen Vergangenheit auch wieder zu einem erneuten Erfolg bringen will. Wer mehr zu Sonoro Gold erfahren will, der sollte John Darch unbedingt auf der Edelmetallmesse in München besuchen. Dort wird er bei uns von axinocapital am Stand zu finden sein und gerne mit euch sprechen. Solltet ihr aber keine Möglichkeit haben, am 4. und 5. nach München zu kommen, so solltet ihr in jedem Fall einen Blick ins Webinar werfen. Dort ist Sonoro CEO Kenneth MacLeod nochmal auf eure Fragen eingegangen und hat die Firma nochmal im Detail vorgestellt. Solltet ihr jetzt noch irgendwelche Fragen an Sonoro Gold haben oder auch an uns, so schreibt sie gerne unten in die Kommentare. Auch Freikarten sind noch über uns zu bekommen. Schreibt uns dafür gerne an roadshow@axino.com. Viele von euch haben schon angefragt. Wir freuen uns, wenn wir euch dann dort am Stand auch treffen dürfen. Und falls wir uns nicht auf der Messe sehen, sehen wir uns in jedem Fall im nächsten Video. Deswegen nicht vergessen, den Kanal zu abonnieren und bis bald.